Success is the ability to deliver result no matter the circumstances.
Yeah, you should ask SEO.
All you do is increase your prices.
Hello, guys. Welcome to our new podcast episode. And today I have an awesome guest, Matt Singers. It's one of the most famous SEO coaches in our industry. You also may know Matt with his SEO Mastery Conference. So, Matt, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm super excited to have a chat and share some knowledge.
So, I have prepared my fluffy notebook to ask you a lot of questions.
Perfect.
And today I would like to discuss with you the very interesting topic for me, soft skills in SEO in general. Let's start from scratch. Let's determine the definition of soft skills for SEO. What is soft skills for SEO for you exactly?
Well, let's start by saying soft skills is lacking. So, for me, when I think of soft skills, I think of EQ, so emotional sort of intelligence, and I think of communication. So, not just the ability to say something, but where most people go wrong is, and many SEOs do this a lot, they say something, but they don't understand that what you say doesn't matter. It's what the other person hears that matters. So while many times you might say technically the right thing, if the person you're talking to don't understand it or misinterpret it, that's your fault, right? So fundamentally core communication skills, the ability to communicate, and like we're doing now on video. So in the world of SEO, many people much prefer to write like chat messages and emails more than talking to people. And one of the core essentials for becoming relatively successful, at least, is to actually develop communication skills, right? Because if you want to, like, if you're a really smart SEO, but you can't take what's in your head and communicate that out to the people around you, then you're only ever going to get so far, right? So for me, communication skills and general emotional intelligence, emotional abilities to connect with people, I spent 15 years learning how to smile. I'm slightly better at it now, but um, these are the things that makes a big difference when you're dealing with other humans. And reality is, many SEOs, they just want to sit and do SEO, which is great if your goal is to have a full-time job or a busy life. But if you really want to be successful, successful is obviously your definition, right? But if you really want to build a big company, make a lot of money, then you definitely want to learn some of these skills.
Today, I would like to put a small accents for soft skills for SEO in-house, in agency, and SEO consultants. There are three different types of SEOs. I mean that in agency, you should be in all hats, and especially if you are a solopreneur, because you need to be good at hard skills because you're only one team member who do all the job. You also should be a good sales manager. You also should have strong communication skills to build your network and build new relationships. And I think there is a big difference between in-house sales specialist because you work in team, you have limited responsibilities which can be measured by your KPIs and your business goals, which provided by company.
To an extent, I agree. But the thing is, even when you're working in house, like if you're the head SEO, one of the things you will end up bumping your head into many times is someone disagreeing with you. So you'll have a
Yeah.
manager, you come up with an idea and say, yay, this is a strategy we should do. And then you have a manager or you have a developer or you have someone else saying, oh, that shouldn't be done or that can't be done and all this. And the thing is, if you don't have good communication skills, if you have not built good relationships, even in house, then often you don't end up delivering the results that you can. And the thing is, it's easy to say, well, I can't deliver because these people are blocking me. But in the end of the day, success is not about excuses, right? Success is the ability to deliver result no matter the circumstances. And that's the key thing. Where most people go wrong in the in-house is that in-house is often just as political, it's often just as difficult as dealing with clients, right?
Yeah, anyway, in house you should have strong communication skills because you have a lot of stakeholders and you need to get approval for such a lot of things, as you said, with developers, UX design departments, etc. And it's quite important to build also the connection between those departments and showcase that, yeah, you should ask SEO for some changes in your website, even if you think that they are not so important. But just to start a little bit before
Mhm.
about soft skills in general. Um, for nowadays, Google changes so fast. I mean, there are such a lot of updates, and it's never enough to be a good technical SEO. Because, to be honest, it's my opinion. Don't be rude if you not agree, but I think you cannot be a good technical SEO without any programmatic degree. I mean, without any technical degree, because it's not enough to know to know how does core web vitals work. You should know also Python, JavaScript, etc. A lot of things. So you can delegate probably a lot of technical part, but I think the most important for SEO is to sell the idea of SEO strategy in general, because that's the start of your journey with any kind of project. If you believe in your own strategy, if you can sell this idea, a lot of us have cases when we create a full strategy, but in 1 year, this strategy is not one by one to our original document, and we can change it frequently because SEO is a long distance game. So I think. What do you think about it in general? Should we be a good sales manager?
Well, I mean, the ideal people are very good at many things. Reality is we always have certain strengths and weaknesses, right? So if you're naturally super introvert, learning to become great at sales is often very, very difficult, because great sales is often about being assertive, and it's certain things that don't necessarily match up. However, uh, everyone can learn to communicate better. So if you look at communication skills, that's something that all people can learn. What I would say about sales is that, let's say you want to run an agency, for example, and you are very, very good at SEO yourself, but you are extremely introvert, then my recommendation is to either find a business partner who is sales focused, or potentially hire someone, or if you have someone that is good at this stuff, to hire them and bring them on board, right? Because again, one of the biggest issues I see in many SEO companies is the person trying to be everything. What I typically tell people is that SEO is often one of the least important things in the world of SEO. And what I mean with that is that the most successful SEOs is not the best SEOs. The people who make the most money in the world of SEO is not the people who are best at SEO, right? Like,
Mhm.
reality is, for $5,000 a month, you can go and hire a decent SEO, right? So the thing is, hiring someone to do SEO is often cheaper than finding someone who's great at other things in the business, right? So again, where many SEOs kind of get stuck is that they want to do the SEO, they want to be the perfectionist doing everything the right way. But the problem is that often doing like the SEO piece is often the easiest thing to hand to other people. So I've worked with people who literally got an agency from 0 to 200K the first year, just by doing sales. So very, very good sales guy who understood enough about SEO, and he literally find an agency to white label the services. But he just spent all day, every day, focusing on connecting with people, doing sales, and he made significant money even the first 12 months, right? Because he just had one core focus. So one of the big problems often is that when you look at many SEOs that are starting out, they make one sale, then they spend all the time and energy on delivering the service and making that client happy. But the problem is, as soon as that client leaves, they're like, oh, now we have no clients, we have no money, right? So the key thing in any business is you need to keep lead generation going all the time, right? So you can never ever stop lead gen, because if you do stop lead gen, then you put yourself in a top spot. Now, there's people who get over to the other edge where they're like, oh, we have too many leads. And again, there's no such thing as too many leads. If you have too many leads, all you do is increase your prices. So if you can only handle 10 clients and you don't want to be able to handle more, and you have, I don't know, 20 people who want your services, the way you utilize that situation is you keep increasing your prices so that the quantity of the leads go smaller, and therefore overall your business end up generally being more profitable, right? But reality is that most business start out being about sales and marketing. It's about attracting leads, it's about making sales, and then it's about delivery, right? And SEO start the other way around. They focus so much on delivery instead of the sales
Mm-hmm.
and the marketing.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I had such experience when I tried to do and to be everything, and a manager, a technical SEO team lead, and a designer and sales manager. So yeah, it doesn't work. But what about retention? Do we have any connection between soft skills and retention? Does it important to improve our?
The number one reason in most agencies why clients leave is poor communication, right? A lot of the time agencies are saying, but we delivered great result and this client left, they're stupid. I'm like, no, they didn't leave because you didn't deliver result. They left because you didn't communicate well, right? The thing is, as an SEO, when you're sitting looking at the numbers, you get what's going on. But the problem is that a client who doesn't hear from you for a month don't know you're working, right? They don't necessarily understand what you're doing or that you're doing something, and suddenly they're like, well, we're paying money to this person and or this company, and we don't really hear from them, so let's stop paying them money. So one of the biggest things you can do to increase retention is to communicate, not always just more, but communicate better. So it's about building great relationships with your clients so that they actually understand not just what you're doing, but that you have a relationship with them, right? People are significantly less likely to leave with if it doesn't matter if it's an account manager or whatever, but if you have a good relationship with a client, they are significantly less likely to leave. As an SEO company, wherever your account manager, whichever, like building relationship with your customers are important, right? So it's figuring out what are they into, what do they care about, do they have a bunch of kids, like do they play golf, do they go hunting, what are they doing, when is their birthday, on their birthday send them something that's relevant to who they are, right? And the thing is, yes, that have nothing to do with SEO, but the thing is, business is about relationship. Life is about relationships, right? And a lot of relationships is keeping in contact with people. It's showing people that you care, not just about the money they pay you, but care about them. When you show people that you care about them, they're significantly more likely to, one, stick around with you, and two, send you more clients, send you more referrals.
Yeah, and I would like also to add from my own experience that building relationships with clients, it's not only about the delivering the task. Even sometimes it's even good to make mistakes and said to clients that you are also human and you also can do some mistakes, and sometimes clients also do mistakes. So in these cases, it's also a good part of your relationships, because SEO cannot be ideal all the time because of a lot of things, because of developers, because of updates, because of the budget. So we need to try to be not friends. Okay, friends. It's much more bigger, but at least to be a good mate, because first of all, it's your own brand, it's your own reputation. They can recommend you to other client. You can work for a lot of years. So yeah, I think it's fine when you are not the best technical person, but if you have good communication skills, it's a huge benefit for you. I also would like to ask you one kind of stereotype. So I talked with a lot of people from the United States and UK. So, what's your opinion about high degree for SEO when company try to hire SEO? Because from my perspective, for example, in Ukraine, it's not such important stuff because we have different mentality. And when I was searching for another jobs in the United States, it's like requirement. What's your opinion on this? Is it really important? Because I think that a lot of companies can lose some potential good good people.
It's not about losing. So the way it works, and this is I mean, any most jobs degrees are not important, but reality is in most cases people look at and evaluate performance. I'm not saying always, but in most cases, if you can show someone I have done exactly what you want, and that doesn't matter if that's for a job or if that's for a client, if you can go to a dentist SEO client and show them that you have helped four of their competitors somewhere else in the country do exactly what you want them to do, there's no better sales argument, right? And it's the same thing when you're applying for a job, right? Like I am probably the most uneducated person you will find. I nearly completed high school, but I have never been asked. Like I've worked in many management roles in large corporations. I've worked in a lot of places, and no one ever cares because they look at what is the results you deliver. So the thing is, yes, in some cases, even in Ukraine or even in other places, if you are in a situation where a lot of people, and I teach this from a job perspective, is if you have a lot of candidates, there's simple things you should look at to try and bring that list down, right? So let's say I have a job with 200 candidates. I would typically look at some skills and I would say, everything else being equal, if someone types faster, there's a higher likelihood that they will be successful in this role. That doesn't mean that everyone who types slow is necessarily bad. But if I take the 100 fastest typers and the 100 slowest typers, everything else being equal, there's a higher likelihood that a very fast typer will be more successful because that's a good indication that they're better at working on computers. And if they're working on computers, they're going to be spending a lot of time. Like if they're spending 8 hours a day in front of a computer, typing faster, everything else being equal, is more likely to get results. The concept of education for me is similar, right? If you have a lot of candidates, like let's say I'm hiring a marketing person, where like an SEO is in principle is a marketing person. Now, if I have 100 candidates that apply, I'm not going to interview 100 people. But if I can see that 50 of them have a marketing degree, everything else being equal, there's a higher likelihood that the people with a marketing degree know something or have tried something that the people that don't have a degree haven't tried. Or in a similar phase, if someone have worked as an SEO for 5 years versus someone who have never worked as an SEO, they're more likely to be successful, right? So that's generally how I evaluate things like that. So in principle, it's and in some countries, I mean, I'm from Denmark, and if you want to be a bin man in Denmark and empty bins, you need like a 3 or 4 year education. So, there's many countries on the planet where they're more crazy about education than they are in the US. But I think that the fundamental in most roles in life is showing and learning how to show results. The biggest thing I would say is I never would apply for jobs by sending a resume to some random mailbox. I don't fundamentally believe that that's the way to get jobs, right? I think if you become one in 200 resumes, like the likelihood of you ever getting anywhere is very slim. So the way I always advise people to do it is if there's a company you want to work for, if there's a particular job, find them, get to meet them, show up where they are, right? Like literally hunt them down in social media and check what events they're going to, or check where you can meet them. Uh, or do something different, right? If a company is hiring an SEO, you know, do an audit for them and say, hey, I saw you guys were looking for an SEO. Here's I spent 30 minutes doing a deep dive audit on your website. Here's the main things that I quickly off the top of my head could figure out that you guys should change, blah blah blah. But do something that makes you stand out. If you just send a resume like everyone else, you're very unlikely to ever end up in a job somewhere.
Yeah, exactly, because it's a huge competition on the market. A lot of people are scaring of AI technologies, and basically, it's true that a lot of companies lay off a lot of sales during this year. It's not a big difference, but at least for 20%, the share market job has decreased this year. Instead of PR, digital PR jobs were increased. So we can make a conclusion that for now, uh, people are seeking mostly digital PR specialists, but never mind. Okay. I would also ask you about the clear communication and transparency between coworkers and clients. It's a huge problem to say the truth that you don't know something. Just how we can build this process to do not lose our reputation. I mean, it's a frequently situation when you're doing some kind of your SEO job and you really don't know how to do it. Um, how we can deal with it? Is it okay to say our colleagues or to say our clients that unfortunately I don't know, but probably I will try to research what to do
Yeah.
in these cases when
I
people are scaring.
One of the biggest issues for SEOs is they're afraid of making mistakes. They're afraid of admitting
Yes.
mistakes. Very often, when they make mistakes, as you said earlier, you're better telling someone to say, "Hey, man, I did this and I should have done that. I'm gonna fix it," etc. Most of the time, SEOs are hiding away from mistakes, so they don't want to admit that they made them. They think that that makes them look weak, but really, it's not even about making them look human. But it's about when people learn that you own up when you make a mistake, that makes you more valuable to them, right? Because they know that if there's ever a problem, you're going to tell them. And it's way worse not working with people where you don't know if there's a problem, right? So if you don't know there's a problem and suddenly you're like, oh, things exploded, that is a horrible scenario. So the benefit with that is really making sure that you communicate clearly. Now, saying that, so what you're asking specifically, right, is how to communicate clear and how to say I don't know. And it's very simple. Just say I don't know, but I'm gonna go figure it out. No, but here's the thing. Like a lot managers go through this a lot. A lot of the time managers think they have to have the answer for everything. So if an employee come and ask them something, they will answer confidently even if they don't know, because they feel they have to know because they're the manager, right? And that is not true at all, right? The best managers don't know what their staff are doing. And what I mean with that is the best managers that manage instead of do, those people are people that don't actually have to know what their staff is doing. They should be good at managing them. They should be good at communicating with them and get the most out of them. But they shouldn't be in a position to tell them how to do their job, right? That's typically where you get the best quality managers, is those people who don't know. So one of the big issues in many companies is when you're promoting people, and they're the expert of the job they used to do because you want to promote your best people, they often get stuck and they don't actually become managers. They end up getting stuck in micromanaging and so on for that particular reason. Like from a high level point of view, where you're unsure about things, just admit
Mhm.
it. Just say, hey, I don't know, but I'll go find out. Or, like, if you're communicating with your staff, let's say you're a manager communicating to your staff and they come and ask you a question, you'd be like, hey, I don't know. Why don't you go and figure out? right? Just
Or you can ask, I don't know, but what do you think?
yeah,
How would you do in this situation? For
yeah.
example, it's a goal, also a good practice, not to ignore juniors' questions, but just to help them to figure out by themselves.
Learn how to think. Learn how to think. So when you ask them questions, they learn how to think, right?
For now, okay, about communication. For communication, we are fine. For now, we know the main points. But when SEO become head of SEO or team lead, the new challenge accepted how to delegate correctly, because it's also a common issue when you are good at your stuff, but you cannot delegate and teach other people in your team. And
Yes.
I think it's not enough to create a huge knowledge base, because honestly, not a
No.
lot of people are doing knowledge base because it's a waste of time, to be honest.
Right.
What recommends can you give us to those people who really have big scare of teaching other people?
The key misunderstanding here, delegation is not about teaching. Delegation is about giving ownership and responsibility. So unfortunately, many people online teach that when you manage people, you have to figure out what to do, put it into a process, and give it to someone else. Let's say you're good at link building, right? Or let's say I want to let's say I want to teach you how to do link building. You don't know link building, right? Instead of me sitting down teaching you and say, "Hey, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this," like giving you tasks one by one. What you want to do is instead, I want to go to you and say, "Hey, Alexander, I love the way you I don't know. I love the way you communicate with people, and I really need your help to help send a lot of emails, right? Because we need to do this link building thing, and as a head SEO, I'm too busy to do it. So I really need your help. I want you to be responsible for our link building in this company, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Now, the second thing you do is you
You
then
give me the value right now
I give
in
you
this.
I give you the responsibility, and then I do something which is very important, which is I give you some specific goals. So I say the goal here is that we build minimum 50 links per month and within a certain quality standard, right? So we have a certain quality thing that determines if a link is good, and our goal is to build minimum 50 links, right? Now, here's a process of how we have been doing it, and I'm happy to show you how we did that. But your goal is to make sure that we hit our goal, right? So it's not just go do this thing, because if I teach you how to do a process and the process didn't get the result, that becomes my problem. If I give you an ownership and I tell you the goal and you're trying to do a bunch of things and it's not giving you the result, then suddenly I'm looking to you and say, well, if it's not working, I want you to go and figure out what else we can do. I want you to go out and try whatever else we can do because we need to hit the goal. You want to give people around you areas of responsibility that they can own. Because when you do that, what happens is initially you might be better than them. But if they're full time focused on just doing link building, for example, over time they will get, you get a little bit better, but they will overtake you because they spend all day, every day just link building, right? Now, the problem is if it's the other way around. So if you're in a situation where you're not delegating responsibility, you keep answering all the questions and you stay better than your employee because you keep being the expert. But when you give someone full responsibility and you measure the output, so don't spend so much time looking at how they do it. Just look at, are they getting the output? And if you're not getting the output, sit down once a week in your one to one and say, hey, you're supposed to deliver 10 links last week. We only delivered 6. What do we need to do to get to 10? Right? So that's the conversations to have. And this is the thing, every single person who is successful right now is successful because someone somewhere trusted them, gave them ownership and responsibility, right? So I don't know your background exactly, but I will bet you that at some point somewhere you became an SEO because either a client or a manager somewhere said, hey, we don't know how to do this SEO thing. Can you do it for us? Right? No one. ever become really good at what they're doing because someone gave them a pile of processes and say, do this thing.
Yeah, exactly. And by doing in this way, teaching, not teaching, but giving the responsibility to your team, they start to ask questions and think by themselves and be much more involved in the process. Because on this example with link building, it's a huge problem when you try to teach trainee. For example, here is how I do pivot table. You need to do backlink analysis, and when I show how to do it, they will never remember the process and they will never teach it because it doesn't work. If I ask them, for example, you need to do a pivot table and to do a backlink analysis, they will start asking questions because the first question, how to do this pivot table, because I have never did it before. So yeah, I think it's a good approach in general. One of the other problems which all SEO has, you already mentioned a little bit that all SEOs are mostly introverts. And nowadays we are living in crazy time when everyone has on LinkedIn profile, start to build their brand performance, try to share their case studies. What what to do to people who really don't like to to share all this stuff in social media? And the second question is also about how we can communicate in case of international teams, because I think it's also a quite important aspect to discuss, because there are, especially for now, for example, for Ukrainians, they start to build their career in foreign companies, and we all of us have different historical perspective, different background, and different cultural background. How we can determine it and how we can communicate in more proper way in such cases?
Yeah, I would say a couple of key things. So if we start with the first one, like from a high level point of view, when it comes to international communication, right, and communication between teams, you need to build relationship, right? So obviously there's a level of language skills. There's a
Yeah.
level of language skills, right, which is required. So from a company standpoint, you probably want to make sure that there's a certain level of language skill present between people you hire, right?
Hmm.
So, and that doesn't matter what language that is, but if people don't speak the same language, it's very hard to manage them or be managed or whatever, right? So you want to make sure there's a certain level of language skill presence. And again, different people, different places, there's different cultures, there's different ways to communicate. But again, the two things I always talk with people about is learning to understand humans. So learning to understand human behavior and really learning to understand how different people think, how different people communicate, and how they want to be approached, right? Like some people, they're just straightforward, straight to the point, just tell me what you want and piss off. Some people, they want to sit and talk for 40 minutes about nothing. Some people, they want all the details, but it have to be super relevant, and they want to know anything that ever happened in regards to whatever. Some people just enjoy listening to you talking, and so on. So people are all different, right? So learning to understand personalities for me was probably one of the biggest breakthrough. I'm a huge introvert myself, but I've learned people, if you will, right? So it took me many years to learn people. When I was 18, I literally I knew I had to learn to talk to people. So what I did was I was in a bus to and from work every day, and literally twice a day I sat down next to someone I didn't know and just sat down and said hi. And I did that for like a couple of months, right? And then after a couple of months, I then said, okay, now I'm brave. Now I'll say hi. How are you? Because luckily in the UK, people don't have to answer that, right? Like it's kind of a phrase. So, and then eventually, sometimes people started talking to me and stuff. Was it difficult? Very difficult. Was it uncomfortable? Exceptionally uncomfortable. Uh, it was not nice. But I understood that if I wanted to succeed, one of the basic things as a human being, that's both I moved to a different country when I was 18, so it was learning how to make new friends, finding a potential partner, communicating to people at your job. Like communication is key, and I understood that if I wanted to succeed, I needed to be able to communicate. That was a core aspect. So again, I put in a lot of time and effort. Um, After I became half decent at communication, eventually I started with something called Toastmaster, which is public speaking. And again, I was constantly conscious that I had to keep challenging myself with communication to become better. And that's also one of the reasons why today I'm a pretty decent communicator, right? So it doesn't matter if you see me speak on stages or if you meet me at an event. Like when people communicate to me today, they generally have a great experience. Like as I said before, you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't take what's in your head and get it out to share to people around you, then it doesn't matter.
You also just mentioned about the public speaking. How we can implement some kind of very basic lessons from public speaking to be good at our soft skills at work.
So the key thing I learned, something like Toastmaster is fantastic because in the beginning I thought it was just about public speaking, but it was not. So the thing I learned at Toastmaster was one, how to use my body language. Because I used to be like, this guy just walking around like this and standing like this and talking like this. And, it took me a long time to learn that, that's very ineffective. The same thing with smiling, the same thing with keeping eye contact with people, the same thing with, just general hand movements and body gestures. Like those things I got a ton of feedback on in the beginning, and I would never have known if I hadn't done something like that. Other things is learning to be concise. So the thing is, when you're standing on a stage and let's say you have 10 minutes to explain a message, you have to learn how to take something big and you could talk about for 2 hours, and you have to learn to get it into something that takes 10 minutes and gives value to the people. Because again, you meet many people who don't speak up because they're afraid. You'll meet many people who speak up but speak way too much and don't know how to be concise, don't know how to, like they start annoying people around them because they're always just talking, but there's no particular point. So learning how to be concise and how to think in a way that puts what you're wanting to say across in a good manner. Um, and yeah, learning to speak up, like learning to be comfortable at speaking up, because again, many introverts, when they're sitting in a company around a table with 10 other people and or in a Zoom chat with 10 other people, and they're like they have something they want to say but they're uncomfortable speaking up and so on. Again, that's also important, because if you don't speak up, people don't know what you think, and what you think is less likely to be important, and therefore your value, your contribution is less. And if you want to succeed, you want to make sure that you share your opinion and you share your knowledge the best you can when it makes sense and when it's useful.
Yeah, I think it's also you cannot be a native speaker to feel the tone of voice of people who you are talking with, especially when we are talking about the approval of strategy. When I see a CEO who is nervous about the strategy and the budget questions, probably I think that he doesn't believe in himself. So
Yeah.
why should I believe him? Why should I give him my money and my development time, etc. I think it's also important to work with your tone of voice in general, to practice your voice, because no one wants to listen people like this. Hello, today we are going to discuss our strategy. No one cares. It's not interesting. It's like a noise. You should be remarkable to grab attention of your team. They should listen you, watch it you, and do not check their phones during your speaking. So I think it's a good signal when you see that someone is just typing the messages and really doesn't listen, because I don't believe in multitasking. By the
Yeah,
way, do you believe in it?
well, it's the concept is flawed, right? But yeah, I mean, you can only physically do one thing at a time. If you keep
Mm-hmm.
jumping around between three things, you're just being slower. But sometimes that's what happens, right? I don't think multitasking is. I don't think it's a big thing. So actually, it's a great point. So one of the biggest issues most people have, everyone talks to me about time management. right? They're always like, oh, how do I get better time management, blah blah blah, time management, time management. And what they mean with time management is they have a to-do list of 700 items and they want to
Uh-huh.
know how they can do more things in less time. 95% of people are they're too busy doing too many things that are not the right things. So like in SEO, for example, I work with many agencies and I'm like, what do you do when you onboard a new client? And they show me this checklist of like 400 things they check on a new website every time, right? And you're like, right, that takes you 3 weeks to do for a full-time person. 5 things or the 10 things that actually makes a difference, right? Like
Mhm.
again, if you even if you start with those things, you're going to be better off, right? So the whole thing is that many people do all the things they do. They have a lot of things they can do, but any success in life is about prioritization. Like success in business is about prioritization. That's why, as I mentioned earlier, with sales and marketing, the problem is if you totally deprioritize sales and marketing, you're going to have a problem, if not tomorrow, then the day after, or the day after. Most success in any job roles is about learning how to prioritize. So as an SEO, it's not about saying, oh, we need to get all this stuff done. As an SEO, success is understanding what are the things that are most likely to move the needle. And when you have done those things and you haven't moved the needle enough, then the question is, what is the next things that are most likely to move the needle? And so on and so on. But the problem is, most people just follow this big to do list of things they would like to do at some point. And the most successful people, honestly, don't work that many hours, but they're more focused on doing the right things. So if you spend more time actually sitting down, thinking, looking at your to do list and saying, what are the actual things that are really going to move my business forward?
Yeah, I agree. I do, for example, when I'm doing some kind of audits for my clients, especially the technical stuff. Let's take an example. We have some kind of core web vitals issues, but the business owner doesn't care. What does it mean? He shouldn't want to be involved in these problems. So the best thing which I can do is just prioritize the business potential of these issues. For example, we have a lot of issues for technical stuff, but the most important part in this audit, how it's important for your business, because I'm not sure that core web vitals with 100 points is really important. But fixing some kind of JavaScript which affecting to rendering are the crucial part. So your audit can be very small, like if few sentences, a few words, and that's it, you did it. Of course it's good when you have some nice template and customized for your clients, but to be honest, business doesn't care about it at all. They want to get the value from your work. So
One of the biggest thing, like I've worked with a lot of clients that used to do all these complicated reports and keywords and traffic and yada yada yada. Well, here's the thing: it often, more than anything, it gets them in trouble because what happens is sometimes some random stupid keywords start dropping off, and suddenly the number of keywords you have goes down, and then you start getting questions, and then you start spending time on stuff that doesn't matter. Just give the client one page with two numbers on it. You paid us this much, we made you this much, right?
yeah, the perfect
So
one.
if you have any way, like if you're doing e-commerce, for example, you can often track the impact of SEO, or if you're doing like working with lead gen or something, you can often track it. If you have a report that says you paid us $5,000, we made you $20,000, then the only question you have is, are you ready to pay me more money so I can make you more money? And the answer every single time is usually yes, right? So the whole thing is that SEOs, because they're so busy thinking about keywords and thinking about traffic, they think that other people care. But reality is, business owners care about making money, they care about potentially leads, but they care about sales. That's what they want.
Yeah, and a lot of CEOs unfortunately forget that no one talks in their Elfie language. Unfortunately, that it's so hard to understand what you're talking about, what's the core web vitals issue, why should I care and spend my time to discuss this part.
I mean, it's a great scenario. If you look at how many SEOs have spent so much freaking time on improving website speed, and the actual improvements in SEO from it, if you look at, like, it's going to be billions of dollars that have been wasted trying to improve some stupid metric somewhere.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's hard to be focused on the primary goal because you're all the time you're doing overthinking about new strategy, new updates, new technical features, new tasks. So, what in general, what can you recommend to sales how to be really focused on the most important stuff?
That's a really good book, called The One Thing, and very simple concept of, if you could only do one thing today, what's the one thing you could do that would make the biggest difference? Now you can bring that down. Let's say you have 5 websites you're working on. You can ask yourself each day, say, what's one thing I can do on this side that would make a big difference? What's one thing I can do today that would make a big difference on this side? If you really ask yourself that question, what's also important about that is you learn how to prioritize. The problem is when you're always used to doing everything all the time, you never learn how to prioritize because you don't actually know what works. Because when you're doing 10 changes, you don't know which one of the 10 changes actually works. You just know the 10 of them work combined, but you don't know if it's one of the things, 5 of the things, or 8 of the things that are required to get the improvements you get.
About the hiring processes. It's a huge problem to SEO to hire another SEO because in the on the interview in most of cases we are talking about the background, the case studies, etc. But a lot of us forgot about the building relationships with people. How it's important to be in good relationships. I mean, how we can determine the red flags during the interview process with person that it probably can be a good fit even if the person is not such experienced.
Get the person to talk for 15 minutes with 2 or 3 of the staff members they'll be working with, and just see what impression they have. If you have someone who can't communicate, or if you have someone who is, super weird coming across or whatever, like, that's the way to do it. So if you get the person to just have, like, get some of the other people in the company that he or she's gonna be working with, and just say, hey, have a 15-minute chat with them. Ask the person to tell them about the job. Ask the person just to give them some information about the company, and just see how they get along, right? And saying, hey, what was your impression of this person? Was it someone that, just from the pure impression, that you would like to work with?
Unfortunately, in most of cases, it seems like HR managers prepare some kind of standard questions, send them to your previous colleagues, for example, and that people write you, "Hey, I just received a message about feedback
Yeah, but
about you."
that's only part of the process, right? That's only part of the process. Like, as a company, as a hiring manager, if you're an SEO hiring another SEO, it's your responsibility to make sure it's a good person, right? So yeah, I'm sure there's HR referral processes and stuff in the background, but as a manager, you would want the best person to work with you, and you need to figure out how you find the best person.
What do you think about the test period of in working company? I mean, in general, it's about 3 or 6 months, but is it fine to fire people just in one day? Because I see, for example, that we do not have connection.
What I recommend most people, you can't do it in every single role, but in most roles, set a goal for each one of the first 3 months. Say, okay, your goal as a new employee for the first month is to deliver X. Your goal for month two is to deliver Y, and for month three to deliver Z. One, it gives them a clear expectation of what they need to deliver. And that's very helpful for a new employee, that they actually know what the hell are they supposed to do. Two is, it gives you as the manager a good sort of backup network to think at the end of the month, say, hey, this person didn't deliver. They had to do whatever, and they didn't quite get there. Do I really believe that they're gonna be great, or is it time to say goodbye? Because the problem is, it's easy to wait 3 months or 6 months, but the problem is, that's a lot of opportunity cost if it's not the right person. And very often, in 1 month or 2 months, you have enough data, you know enough about the person to say, okay, I don't think this person is going to be great.
We didn't discuss the another part of soft skills. Now we talked about how you can perform yourself, but how we can protect ourselves. It's kind of not popular thing to discuss, but sometimes our clients can be really toxic, like to write you in WhatsApp in 3 p.m. asking why we are not in top right now, or something like that. Um, how we can be polite, and how we can build the line between clients and us, how we can protect ourselves.
Protecting yourself, I'm not sure it's the right way to think about it. The way I would think about it is, what is the challenges you have in the business? So for example, if one
Yeah.
challenge you have is client expect A, and when they're not getting it, they come and complain. So number one thing is expectation setting. So, for example, when a client is onboarded in the company, how do you make sure that the expectations to the client are set in terms of how quick they get results, in terms of how to communicate, in terms of like, so again, this is a problem. Most companies don't tell them. But if you sit down and tell a client, okay, client, we're going to onboard you. Here's our plan. We're going to do these things. After 2 weeks, we will get on the phone with you and we'll give you an update of what I've been doing. So they have a clear expectation of this is what's happening. What makes people most unhappy and what get most people frustrated is when they don't know what's happening or why it's happening. You might have an internal process that's clear, but if it have not been communicated to the customer, then it is very hard for the customer to understand. So the single most important thing to combat that issue is to ensuring that the communication with the customer on setting clear expectation of deliverables, of communication, of whatever. So for example, you could say to customers, you could say, yep, we will answer emails within 48 hours. That means if you send us an email, it will be 2 days before you get a reply, or it could be up to 2 days. Now, again, if you set that expectation up front and they know, that's usually okay. Now, if you don't set the expectation, if you have an internal process that you have to reply in 2 days, but you don't tell the customer sent you an email, and a day and a half later, they're like furious because they think you're just ignoring them. Again, it comes down to expectation setting. A lot of time with agencies, they're like, yeah, we know it will take a while, so we're just kind of crossing our fingers, not calling the client, and just hoping they don't complain too much, and then hopefully eventually we'll deliver results. But even when they start delivering results, they're not communicating. So again, it
Mhm.
comes down to communication, right? Like, happiness is a very simple formula everywhere, including in clients. It's reality minus expectation equal happiness. So the core thing about expectation setting is really about happiness in principle, right? So if you make a promise and don't keep it, you should expect the person at the other end to not be happy because you made a promise to them that you did not keep.
In most of cases, the secret to our success in working with clients is just clear and transparency communication with all of the stakeholders.
Here's the thing, if today you respond at 2 a.m., but tomorrow you're asleep, what happens? If you answer today at 2 a.m., the client might have an expectation that when they message you at 2 a.m., you answer. Be clear in your communication process, be clear in your review process, be clear in deliverables. So, for example, if you say, okay, on 2 weeks from now, we will do on Friday the whatever, we will deliver your new website. If at any point you know that the website is not going to be delivered, don't wait until the Friday to say, oh, it will be ready on Monday. Here's the thing, the sooner you communicate, the more time the client have to make necessary adjustments if they need. Whenever you wait until last minute, like let's say I go to the gym and I was told that the gym opens at 9 a.m. But let's say the person who is supposed to open is not available. Now, if I'm standing there at 9 a.m. and it's not available, I'm unhappy. Now, if someone had called me a week before and said, "Oh, on Friday the gym will first be open at 10," I'll be like, "Okay, that's not great," but I'll be a lot less unhappy than if I'm standing there expecting it to be ready.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's quite important, especially about meetings. I hate this situation when you know that you are busy. Why you cancel the call in 1 minute? Like because you know it in advance. Just please cancel it in 1 day at least. It will be much more better. Yeah. Okay. I think that we covered the most important questions which I prepared for you. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience. Probably I would like to ask you the one last question just to cheer up people. What recommendations can you give to SEO how to be motivated? Because SEO it's a long distance game, and it's sometimes it's hard to see your results because you need some time. You cannot get results like in one day. It doesn't work in this way. How we can? What recommendations can you give to be motivated?
Set long-term goals. I mean, reality is, and this is in human population nowadays, there's a problem with sort of dopamine addiction, right? Like people are so used to like opening Instagram, putting on a picture, getting a lot of likes, and they feel good, right? That the thing is, a lot of things that are worth doing takes a lot of time. Like if you want to become a great public speaker, it takes a long time. If you want to build a big business, it takes a long time. If you want to get an education, it takes a long time. So most things worth doing takes a long time. And from a motivational standpoint, the way I motivate myself at least is I try and focus on what is the output I'm looking for. Why am I trying to become a good SEO, or why am I trying to deliver good results? So, for example, when I work with clients, well, I'm doing it fundamentally because I like making good changes in the world, and I know that when I coach people to be better leaders and better managers, what happens is simple. The world gets a better place because most people have not so good bosses, and if I can help a lot of people have a much better boss, then a lot of people in the world become happier. And honestly, that's enough reward for me to feel the motivation to keep doing what I'm doing.
I would like just to add that try to be also thankful. Just
Mhm.
thanks, thank people as much as possible because it's not only about your job. You need to say thank you to all of your colleagues, to all of your clients. It's kind of huge part.
People are motivated by different things. Some people are very motivated by a pat on the back and saying thank you. Some people don't give a shit. Some people are very motivated. Like people are motivated by many, many different things, right? But learning to appreciate people in general is only a good thing.
For me, it's a good practice when I feel that I'm burnout with all of the process. I try to write down all good all good stuff which I did before. Like uh, because sometimes when you're working as a SEO, you don't see result for a long time. So just write down all stuff you did and try to reflect on it and try to be thankful for at least for yourself
Mhm.
that you're fine, you're okay. I think it's also because for now we live in such era when everyone is so successful in LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. Everyone is talking about case studies, how they increase something in 1,000 persons, etc. But so and because of it, we have like an illusion that everyone is so successful, but we forgot that behind this success there are a lot of mistakes which
My favorite is on relationships. Everyone else's relationship is amazing, and no one else have a fight. They just have a perfect life. But you're in a relationship where you sometimes fight, and therefore, your relationships suck. Great example, right? But the thing is, generally, people share the good stuff.
thank you very much, and please like, subscribe, and comment this episode. And see you in next video. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much for having me. It was awesome to be here.
Thank you.